I've always been preoccupied with the I am because this is my statement I read every day. I am sovereign. I am a private living woman outside of maritime admiralty law. I declare by the eternal authority of living source, I revoke all contracts made in my name without informed consent. I nullify all claims of ownership over my body, my mind, and my soul. I'm going to add my spirit. I sever now all false ties to systems that bind through deceit. I return to the sacred law of one, sovereign, free, and eternal. My name is the living essence. I am not a legal fiction. I reclaim my original divine blueprint, untouched and unbound, and so it is. It is done. I am that I am. And this is why the story about the Messiah talking about who do they say I am is so interesting to me. I'll talk to you so you have a clear understanding of what to do if you do go into court, what they're doing there. And this is really important because, yes, they're administering your trust, but because they're administering your dead corpse fiction in all capital letters, they're actually probating your will. They're probating your estate. That's what's going on. And I mean, you know what? I'll go through this first. When you go into court, this happens to everybody. All the people in jail or prison right now are benefiting all these people in government, in the judicial system. And incidentally, why are they building all of these internment camps and additional facilities for ICE to operate out of? How is that so important right now, in addition to all the money that's being thrown at mental illness? You should look at my video on that, about the 1900s. I mean, we literally have people that don't eat in the United States. And it doesn't seem to be a thing. But see, because of eminent domain, there's no way you can stop anything. They own all the land. They have a sovereign position over us as citizens. That's how it was. So that's why a lot of people call this a prison planet. And that's why Jesus came to set the captives free with knowledge. Open their ears, open their eyes so they can actually see where they are. But not everyone, just his people. Again, it's why the church is in place. They're all about communism and making you think that every one of us is the same. We're not all the same, period. And they give us a name at birth. Have you ever looked at the requirements on the birth certificate? I'll put it in here. It's lengthy. And they want to know, I mean, it's unbelievable what they want to know. I'll get to that when I put this video together in the editing. But when you go into court and you have some knowledge, right? You understand they work on admiralty maritime law. They don't want you to know that. In fact, I would never suggest saying that. I wouldn't even suggest trying to get your money. I think that if you take the time to really research things yourself and don't listen to people that try to sell this information, you have to know it in your own heart. If you want to try to get remedy on credit cards and utility bills, which you totally can, but you have to be defiant. You have to be diligent. You have to be totally committed to it. And that's why no one else should do it for anyone else. I've talked about in the past setting up your own trust, your own private bank. And you really got to process these things because they're never talked about in their indoctrination, because the indoctrination is designed to keep you a slave, which you are born as if you're a citizen and you have a birth certificate. Now, even on the birth certificate, it tells you that you're going to have an automatically generated from the hospital Social Security number. Unbelievable. it's all tied to your Cesta QV account. And then, of course, you want to understand what's going on in Puerto Rico. There's a lot to this. Patrick Devine spent his entire life trying to figure it out. And a lot of other people have been doing this for a long time. You can find them. A lot of their videos are buried on the internet. But there's some people who have been talking about these things for over 11 years. Maybe longer, since the inception of YouTube. But it's not enough to go into court and know that they're administering your trust. Granted, that's going to put you in a different place if you show that you understand that. Because jurisdiction is not about the location of where you're at. The jurisdiction is the position you hold with regard to the estate. I'm going to try to talk slow and make this real clear. So the estate, the trust, the Cesta QV account, the way it works is you have 3 individuals, 3 titles of people that are going to handle your case when you go in. And incidentally, the clerk appoints the judge. And the judge, he's going to take the position of the trustee initially, at the very beginning. So let me just write what I've wrote here, trying to make sense of this. Okay, so you have 3 positions, and what you need to have happen for jurisdiction's sake, he's going to try to make you the trustee in a number of different clever ways. Remember, this other race of being is clever, but they're not intelligent. The Gnostics will call it the pneumatic and the hillock. The pneumatic is the triune being, the spirit, and then you have, or the chosen, the elect, and then you have the hillock, which they're completely and totally of this world. They're material. They do not advance spiritually anywhere. They're only relegated to this realm, okay? And then, of course, the Bible says wheat and tare. So the judge initially is appointed the trustee at the beginning of your case by the clerk. See, the clerk has a lot more power than people even know. It's really the clerk that is running everything. And the judge is an actor. And he is there, and that, like if you see the judges in London, they'll wear a wig, and then they wear the cloak. And think about it. How does Dracula present? He has a long black cloak, right? So always remember that. Men that wear these robes, these black robes, men and women, they're parasites. And they're there, they're not going out in the world, they're not making a living anyway, doing anything. The only thing that sustains them is to get their claws, their teeth, into your estate, your trust. But because they're dealing with our straw man that is nailed to the cross, our name in all capital letters, dead at sea, SEE, Maritime Admiralty Law, that we were given the name that they want to utilize in this system. This is why your name is such a big deal here in all capital letters. And it needs to be filed with the state, right away, as soon as you're born, with your footprints and your fingerprints and blood and everything, because that's what you do when you get a new slave, a new chattel, a new cattle. So they're probating. That's what these courts are doing. They're probating all of these people that are in prison, their estates, because they have assumed the position of executor. That's what they have to do when you come in. He has to somehow cleverly make you answer a question in such a way that he can change the game and take him out of being the jurisdiction of the trustee, make you the trustee. And this is all done without you knowing. I mean, the majority of people have absolutely no understanding of this stuff. And then they might get a little information and they want to throw the word sovereign around, which the CIA has already handled. You know, they put up the word out. They have a whole thing about it too. Online, you can research it. They call it sovereign citizen. It's a movement. In fact, when I was doing some of my paperwork with these different municipalities and credit card companies, I would get a form letter back saying, and referencing the sovereign citizen movement. So this is how these corporations and everything work and put these words out into the ether. Even though sovereign citizen is an oxymoron, it can't even exist. The government has a sovereign position over this world, all the land, and all its citizens, period. That's why they can implement eminent domain anytime they want. They might come to you and go through the formality of making an offer on the property, but if they want your property, they will take it. And a good case to look at would be, I think it's KELO, I forget, in 2005. And they took out 17 homes for Pfizer. And it went all the way to the Supreme Court, the Supreme witches and warlocks that are appointed by individuals that were never even voted into office, but they're selected. You see what's going on here? Yeah, it's their club and we're not in it. That's why knowledge for us is power. That's the only thing that's powerful, and only living in the now. A shill is always going to tell you about future tense, future tense. That includes pastors, preachers, people on the internet, shills. I call them shills because they're gatekeepers, they're sellouts. They work for the system. They're there to keep the narrative going and keep these, whatever these are, in power, which chosen elect can affect when we wake up. That's why they silence us. That's why they don't treat our videos the same way that they do the shills. You go into the court, the judge is seated there. He's in the jurisdiction of trustee that has been appointed to him by the clerk. The state is the beneficiary, which is the plaintiff. Okay, so you have the trustee, the beneficiary, and the executor. Those are the three positions that you're dealing with. One of the things, okay, should I tell you this first? The judge is working on your lack of knowledge to your true status. And if you don't know your true status, then it's not going to work in your favor. As soon as she tricks you into answering incorrectly, you become the trustee. It's a game. And I would encourage you to research these topics in Black's Law so you really understand the nature of probate, estate. He's not administering a living trust here. He's actually probating your straw man account because it's dead. And yet here you are, the living man or woman standing in front. Do you see? It's really something else to get your head around this, of what they're doing and what they've always done. That's why when people, I see it's so easy for me to do that, go off and say something, I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. But when they say when America was great, I mean when? Because this system has been in place the entire time. So as soon as she tricks you into answering incorrectly, you become the trustee. And that would be simply like, say, state your name, your full name for the record. Boom, done. Now you're the trustee. It's a game. You got to remember that. You're on a court just like a tennis match, and the ball is hit to you, and then you hit it back. He hits it back to you, you hit it back. And of course, if attorneys are there, which they all work on the same side, even though this is why they want to give you an attorney if you can't afford one. One will be appointed, right? Because you're a slave. This is how slaves are handled. So you never get an attorney, ever. The executor is what you need to be. So this is how you're going to use your name in this scenario, okay? But you're not ever going to say it. And so you're working here in trust law, okay? Which is not a fund. Oh my. Let me see what I wrote here. So the court holds jurisdiction over the trustee, which he has made you. You need to change that to the executor depending on type of trust or will. Okay, well in this case it's going to be a will, it's going to be probate, because you're dealing with your dead straw man account, even though you're the living man or woman. Your court is attempting to administer the trust. This is what you want to say. You never want to go to court. And if you do, you want to have this written up before you get there, in writing. And then you would hand it to if there's a judge, if there's an attorney there for prosecution, you would hand it to them. And you make it out to the court, to the judge. You find out that information, put the case number on it, the date, so on and so forth. But your position on this paperwork, in this scenario, you are administering, probating the straw man account in all capital letters, which he is too. But when he makes you the trustee, now he's in the executor position, calling all the shots. The executor calls the shots. And that's what you need to do. You need to put yourself in that position. As soon as they know that you know this, they'll usually dismiss the case. This is what the letter would say. Your court is attempting to administer the trust, I would say estate, because we're talking about probate. I mean, they really are, they're similar, but they're different. It doesn't mean that what the SQV account is not a trust, if you understand what I'm saying. But in this scenario, the best word would be to use estate. Your court, dear judge, blah, 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 blah. Your court, you might even address it to the clerk and reference the judge, because the clerk is really the one in power. Your court is attempting to administer the estate of all capital letters, your name, however it is on the summons or the paperwork that they've given you, because that is what they're going to access. That's how you're listed in the estates, the straw man system. That makes sense. All caps names, comma, estate, without the consent of the executor's office, period. And you can just write, in your own words, you can rephrase this stuff. I need you to cease. I need you to stop it immediately. And you need to direct this, okay? Because you are the executor of this estate. And that's why it's important, in my opinion, to do research so you really understand what these words mean and what they are doing without your knowledge. And this is why we have so many people in prison, because they didn't know these things. And please forward to me your authorization to administer the estate of all capital letters, comma, estate, without executor consent. The executor is the person appointed to carry out instructions of the estate. dead at sea, SEE, all caps name. The courts probate all the estate's wills of all caps estate trustees in prison or jail. Jurisdiction is relevant to the title, not the location or address. Okay? I hope that makes sense. This is why Pilate was questioning Jesus prior to his crucifixion of where he was from. And I'll put that in here, but I'm not going to go through it all. In John 18, he said, "My kingdom is not of this world." And when you read this and do it from a legal standpoint, you'll understand the Bible the way I do, the way it was written. It's about banking and slavery. So the grantor creates the trust. The beneficiary is the one to be paid or benefit from the trust. So what they do is they have you answer, do it because you have lack of knowledge. You'll incriminate yourself. And you'll answer the question. You never want to answer his question with an answer. You want to ask more questions. And be polite. Don't be mad. This system has been the way they do things forever in this realm. Trustee, the one charged with making sure everything is correctly facilitated with the trust. So they assume, once you answer the question, he assumes the position of executor. They are illegally probating our estate all along. They're probating it as the executor, and that is the shot caller. That is the one that controls the estate. You have the executor, the trustee, and the beneficiary. 1, 2, 3. And when you get into creating your own private trust and moving outside of public, that's something you can do as well. These are hard concepts to get because these things have been ingrained in us our entire lives. We pretty much, if you're like me, you never looked at the fact you're a citizen at birth. We just accept these positions and we go through life. We just accept that we have to work. We just accept that there's no money. We just accept, you know? We accept that we have to pay taxes. We accept that we can't afford to buy a car outright, so we have to finance it. We accept the norm is to do a 30-year mortgage. Let's say that it's $100,000, just for practical application. And why does it take 30 years to pay off $100,000? Like when my parents bought their very first home, I think it was like $50,000 or something. And it took 30 years to pay that off, and yet you can buy a car today for $100,000 and you can finance it for 5 years. Why is that? Again, all of these things that you sign your name to are paid within 72 hours. There's a 3-day processing, just like Jesus, 3 days to resurrect. When I was looking at this I am thing, because the way they categorize us and label us at birth, I encourage you to look at what is required with a birth certificate, how they classify us. Again, so when you're thinking about the mark of the beast, again, they always use the word on, doesn't say that, it says in the forehead, in the right hand, or in the right hand. In. And that's why Jesus says you're going to have a new name in a white stone. In. Because it's all spiritual. It's a lot to learn this stuff when you think about coming up against the beast and all the ones that are brainwashed, that didn't get the awakening. It's a real big thing. In Matthew 16, it talks about the rock. The rock is what Peter answered the I am with. He also had a couple of different names if you read that, Simon and Peter. The enemy demiurge archons invert the Bible and teach it literally to control the spiritless beings. Let's just go through it again. The tear, the hillocks, the clones, the zombies, the walk-ins, the NPCs, whatever you want to call them. You see them now, right? You see that they're not like you. They never were. But you're so outnumbered in your life, you always probably thought it was something wrong with you. Hopefully now, as a chosen elect, you see yourself for who you really are. And you probably agreed to come here. And you were sold a bill of goods. Because they're allowed to lie, cheat, and steal in this game. The Apocrypha of John calls it a contest. So the enemy demiurge archons invert the Bible and teach it literally to control the spiritless beings they inherently need to follow. True seekers seek out a thing and never follow. The Masons invert everything. The church they perceive, understand to be the brick and mortar building and groups of people. That's what their idea of the church is. But I'm going to tell you what the church is, okay? This is not what he was talking about. This is not what the Messiah was talking about. The Messiah is you and me. And if you truly are a Messiah seed, a chosen elect, this will make sense to you. You're like, duh, okay? This is how the Bible is really supposed to be understood. Pharisees are always seeking a sign, looking for a rapture, looking for Jesus to return, looking for anything in the future money. Money's coming. And it's going to come through the same system that's set up to make you a slave, take your money, extort all your energy, your life energy from birth. That's what the birth certificate's about, incidentally. It's there to identify how much life energy they're going to get out of you. And then that is used to establish the trust, the estate in the background for the straw man. Matthew 16:18, Peter received revelation from source, not a man, of the I am. And that is the metaphysical rock. I am is the rock on which his church is built. The rock is the I am, which resides in the temple of God, which is you and me. We are the rock. And the gates of hell cannot prevail against us. It's just that simple. Now you see how the church goes out of the way to make it like a brick and mortar. They're really going to sacrifice, heifers and all this different stuff. They can't understand it any other way. It's got to be literal. Moreover, that's the God of this world that sacrifices and bleeds out animals. And gives the little ones to Baal and all that. Okay, and that is the metaphysical rock, quote unquote, on which his church will be built. Once the I am is built within you, your spiritual gates will not allow hell to enter you, control you, influence you in any way. Jesus is trying to teach to only his sheep, which are triune beings, who forgot where they are from due to the memory wipe. We are gods who came here to incarnate into a body with all that entails. Experience, trials, love, loss, learning, death of the physical. It was our choice. But like the Messiah agreed to come, and he is us. No J's in that time. He's us. He's us. He's us in the Bible stories. When we finally wake up, in other words, get eyes to see and ears to hear, prior to that, we are the prodigal son or daughter that left home, left the I am. We are lost at sea, S-E-E, in the Mason's literal solid three-dimensional world of pigs in the mud. That's where we're living before we wake up. We're living as the prodigal son who left home. That's what that story is about. And he's out in the world wallowing with the pigs, trying to make sense of life until he comes to his senses. It's a metaphor. Where we wander and are treated as animals, pigs, chattel. The Masons, Christianity, are false gods of Satan on earth, material beings who cannot understand spiritual things. Their leaders number, label, categorize their chattel. The flesh belongs to this realm, and only the flesh desires. The lust of the flesh, what am I writing here? The flesh belongs to this realm, and only the flesh desires. The lusts of the flesh. Most, 80%, live in the flesh. This is why everything here is focused on and emphasizes the importance of the flesh. The archons work to recreate because they cannot create a world just like Source, the way this was set up initially, before they got messed up with Sophia and her son. That's what the story says. And he's just like a typical psychopath, like in the Old Testament, he says, I'm the only God and there is no other, that kind of thing. And this patriarch thing that we live in. Using the ether to connect all beings to the hive mind with further biomedical and material installed in the flesh to control the masses. Not only do they rule through the air, but also through the mind. All consciousness is circumvented to their ideals, rules, wants, and desires. Yet they believe they are their own ideas. But they're in the hive. And this is why propaganda is so important here, 24/7. The belief is what keeps everything going. Even if on paper it died a long, long time ago. These systems continue to go because of the belief. The money continues to work because of the belief. Again, in Matthew 16:17, Jesus said to Peter, "Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood had not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven." And it should say Father, Mother, or just Mother. 16:18, "And I say also unto thee that thou art Peter, and upon this rock, the I Am, I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it." This is why the labels, categories of the archons imitated spiritual connection of Satan, because they lack the church or the rock. They lack the I Am. That's why they had to make the church on an actual rock, a brick and mortar building. The ego, which you see in all these shills and all of these pastors, and I just have one recommendation for them. You really mess it up when you do everything in AI that makes you almost look attractive, but then we're presented with what you really look like once the video starts. I would just forgo the AI. The ego needs recognition, celebrity, honor, vain attention, applause, accolades, acknowledgement. And, they're just lots of pride in the flesh. This is why right after in chapter 16, verse 20, Jesus says, then charged his disciples to tell no man that he was Jesus the Christ. Like, why would he do that? Why would he say, don't tell anyone about me? I don't want them to know. I don't need that. Focus on me. See, he's completely and totally unlike pastors, preachers, self-anointed churches, government, those who follow them. Their egos thrive on name recognition. Think about that. They thrive on their name recognition. They think they're so cool when they put their first and last out there and whatever, acronyms they have from the beast system. They're proud. Look at me. Look at what I'm doing. It's my name. And they don't even know they're a slave. They demonstrate how little they know. Or they do know who they are. And they're going to have their best life here ever because they never get out of here. They don't even know if they're going to recycle into another body. This is why they never talk about that here, that this life is so fleeting. I was told that in my spirit when I was 5. When I was 5, I got this thing that came through my body and it said, life is fleeting. I ran home and told my mom. She goes, oh, good, you heard from God. I go, yeah, I guess. I didn't know what that meant till decades later. I am is enough. That's why we receive a new name. We all inherently act from the heart. Those that blow themselves up are of this world, the dead world, the walking dead. The world beast system loves their own. And now the scripture that resonates the most with me changed Peter's name when he was operating in the I am, on the rock, esoterical rock. He said, flesh and blood did not reveal who Jesus was, but the Father, Mother, Spirit, Holy Spirit in heaven. You see? That's why he changed his name when he said that. And then the very next scripture, he's saying, get behind me, Satan. And he calls him Simon. There's so many codes and things that are hidden in the text, they had to hide it so that they couldn't understand. They can't understand these things anyway, as you see. They have a whole church with 40,000 different denominations that don't understand it, but literally. They're not there to teach them anything. They're there to control them, control their mind with a crown of thorns, and keep them as good citizens, good slaves in the system that are productive and work and provide money. They're in it for the money, period. They don't care about you. There's very few people that will ever care about you in this place. In 1621, Jesus explains to Peter, from that time forth began Jesus to show unto his disciples how that he must go into Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders. I love people that call themselves elder, the chief priest, and the scribes. It's so easy to see people that always steal from people and never give them credit. And they want it to be like their own, especially in this kind of knowledge. That's why they never have the ability to stay on one topic. They have a bunch of information that they've taken from all people that do deep research. And that's why they can talk on one topic for just a second. And then they jump to another, and another, and another. All shit in the past. This has always been here. This program, these people. Certainly in our dispensation. So what difference does it make? All you need to know is what they did then, they're still doing now. How does it affect you right now? They don't know, so they can't address it. They're always telling you something's coming. Something's coming. That's how this thing is set up. to keep you fighting against people that are different than you. You're right, they're wrong. Never looking at who set this whole thing up, who's in control. It's so base and so dumb. You just get so sick of it if you're like me after a while. I'm just sick of being around idiots. I'm sick of it. Like, it's not fulfilling. It never has been. And this is what I said when I said take drugs to survive. I took that video down because it was just an update at that point in time. But my whole life I took diet drugs. I guess other people do Ritalin and stuff like that. I couldn't do these jobs, even though I guess some people would consider them a good job. Sit around, make Excel spreadsheets, cold call. Awful, boring. I hated it. I had to give me something to help me, focus on these laborious, mentally unstimulating tasks that are required in any job. They'll never advance a chosen elect. It doesn't matter if you're competent. They already know you are. But they will never advance you because this is not our world. And then if you don't know who you are, like I didn't for so long, I started to learn it though in the last couple of situations I was in. I was going, okay, there's just too much of a pattern here. And this is what we're talking about when we talk about targeting. See, you are just like the Messiah. He was targeted at birth. So, yeah, these are concepts that religious folks can't get. I hate that word, folk. But religious types cannot comprehend, and certainly the material ones can't comprehend. So from that time on, he said he's going to suffer many things from those people and be killed, metaphorically, and raised again on the third day, or 72 hours later. The same amount of time one has to cancel a signed contract. What he's experiencing on the cross is what we experience our entire lives until we wake up. And that's what that's what it means when he was reincarnated, transfigured. It's spiritual. It's an analogy for what happens when you wake up. You die to this world, you take back your I am, you take back your sovereignty. You're no longer a citizen. You're no longer a slave. I hope that makes sense. This is not for everybody. Okay, then in 1622, Peter, not Simon, rebuked him, saying, "Be it far from thee, Lord, this shall not be unto thee." Now think about that. Why would he say, "Get behind me, Satan," if this was a real ordeal happening? He is crucifying his straw man, his double you, his Peter and Simon. You see? Who do they say I am? This is something you can meditate on for hours. This is so profound as it relates to birth certificates and chattel labels and numbers and how we're treated in this system, just like an animal that's owned. Exactly. So he's trying to stop him, like anyone that stops us. Like even in the court, when he wants to trick us and put us in the trustee position into a different jurisdiction. Jesus turned and said unto Peter, not Simon, Barjona, "Get behind me, Satan. For thou art an offense unto me, for thou savorest not the things of God or source, the Most High, but those that be of men. It's not just about him loving him and not wanting to lose him, like the church teaches. This is why he betrayed him, 3 times? Saying he didn't know him? We'll get into that too. There's more into that. But not in this video. This should be enough to make your head spin. The Most High, but those that be of men. You see, only men wouldn't want him to crucify his straw man. Oh my God. Do you get it? And they have you believing that his physical living body was crucified. The 2 guys on either side represent the good him and the bad him, or the W, all right? Well, for a long time, they used to have an angel and devil on one shoulder. They do it in cartoons and stuff, because they want you to think of it like that. But no, you are made a duality, a W, when you come into this place. They create a straw man of you. And this is how they're able to put all this trickery and use us as chattel cattle and work in the hive our entire lives and extract all our life energy for money. They couldn't do it with the living man or woman, because the living man and woman have dominion, as stated in Genesis, over the entire world. It's not a mistake that they call eminent domain, which comes from dominion, a thing. And eminence means superior, sovereign position over everything. How can they have sovereign position over a living man or woman? They cannot. They have to change your jurisdiction. They have to change your status. And that is done at birth. And this is why he was yelling at Peter and saying he's working for Satan, because he doesn't understand that he's doing this so that the 2 men can become one, sovereign. Just like what I just read to you. I am sovereign. I am a private living woman outside maritime admiralty law. That is what he was doing. Getting rid of the straw man. Isn't that amazing? If you're able to see it. 16:24, then Jesus said unto his disciples, if any man will come after me, which means after. They trip that all up in the religion too. It actually means to come after, not before, after. He's showing us the way to crucify our straw man. If any man will come after me, after him, he goes first to show us the way. That's why his teachings are called the way, and why his teaching originally was called the way. Me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. Take up his cross and follow. You have a cross, evidently, right? He's saying you do. So if you're going to follow him, you got to do the same thing. You got to crucify the straw man. Crucify the dead cross man hanging on the cross, the W. Follow me means to do, act, be, endure, experience, suffer, endure again what he did. The cross is a metaphor to impart a visual of the difficulty involved in living in this way, but also the cross represents your straw man. Why would they call it a straw man? Think about that. They could have called it anything. And if you know what a real straw man is, they use them at farms and stuff, in the cornfield. so that to scare away, different predators so they don't eat the food. It's just a stuffed body, a fake man hanging on a cross. Why did they call it that? Why does he have a cross? Well, they had to make up this whole thing about the Roman crucifixion, because they can't have you understand what crucifixion really means. Crucifixion means to kill the straw man, not the real man. If anything, it's to allow the living man or woman to come forth as such, as sovereign, as not a citizen. It's really something to get this if you do. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. The world constantly works to keep people focused on the flesh, the ego, the body. When life became too easy, people's time is spent on the flesh, improving it, medically enhancing it, making more money, capitalism. The world Satan screams they have what you need to know, the world of Satan. Creating idols of themselves and idols to follow, taking medicine because a demonic worldly antichrist told you to save your life. It's always about saving your life. Okay, I think that's enough.